Finding life very complicated or very hard right now, and you're wondering how you can push through this. I've been there many times in my life, and today I want to talk about this and a perspective shift that I found really useful. And if you stay until the very end of today's episode, I have a bonus point for you that you want to stick around for. As always, I would love some feedback on what you would like to hear more of. So if you want to tell me a little bit more about what you'd like me to talk more about on this podcast, connect me on social media, links are below, or you can leave a comment on this podcast as well. So this is my view that I want to share about when life is complicated or hard, right? My view is when I've been through this, and it's when a mentor said it to me, it made a lot of sense. I also felt it in my own life as well. That, yeah, I think life can be hard sometimes. Yeah, it has its challenges. And some things can go easy and effortlessly, yeah, and life can be hard. I believe, though, generally, people, and myself included, make life out to be a lot more complicated than it needs to be. I think if you look at it, life is very simple. It's a lot more simple than we believe. And I think there's a difference between easy and simplicity. They're two different things. I'm not saying life is easy. I'm saying things can be a lot more simple. And I think you can make life simple. And the thing is, when I've started looking at life in that way, it's made it much more empowering because I feel a lot more in control of what I can do. And I'm going to share with you what I mean with some examples today. When I've done something very simple, right? I've achieved success, right? I was really lacking social skills at one point in my life, my teenage years. So what did I do? It took a lot of courage, but I went out and started talking to more people, making more friends, and I became more and more sociable and more popular over the years. That's not easy. It was simple though. To get good at socializing, I had to go out and socialize. Simple, right? Not easy because you got your fears and all these challenges. I used to not be very healthy in terms of physically when I was younger. I used to eat a lot of cookies and play my PlayStation, not do a lot of exercise. Luckily, as I grew up, and now I'm 33 years old, almost 34, I'm pretty healthy generally. Like, I exercise every day. I mean, I was doing intense intervals in the gym earlier, right? And, I allow myself treats. So I allow myself a small treat each day, but generally most of my food's pretty good. And do you know what I did? I kept it very simple, right? I ate well and I exercised well. Now, the thing is, people want to add in special stories sometimes. Now, I'm not saying when you've got a process a difficult emotion or a health condition, you shouldn't do that. I'm absolutely all for that. Like, I'm 100% right. I've had times when I have real setbacks and dark times, and life's not easy. But it was actually quite simple. I needed to sit with myself and process what I needed to. Where I was going before I went down that tangent was, I think people make up a lot of stories and make it complicated, because if we make it complicated, it means sometimes we step away from responsibility, and responsibility can be hard, right? So, like, sometimes people make it really complicated with, like, losing weight, for example. It is not complicated. It's, go and exercise more and eat well, right? But what stops us is, like, the stories and all these, like, I got this, I got that, and all these kind of things, right? It's a bit like, I've had these stories in myself, right? I was like, well, I can't go out and speak publicly, or I can't speak to people because I'm just not that kind of person. It's really hard for me, and I've had some tough experiences. And that's just a story I was running. And the actual simple thing I needed to do was just go out and speak to more people. Now, I'm not saying don't do the mindset work, the psychology, 100% for that. And, if you just come through something very severe, again, it's about processing that. I'm talking about generally in life. I feel like we make it very complicated. And I really want to give you this perspective, because when you look at things that's very simple to do, yeah, I've got these challenges, it's going to be hard, but I'm going to push through. That gives you a lot more power, I believe. And just ask yourself, if you're stuck in a story, is it helping you? People love to be stuck in stories. They love to be like, well, I can't do this because of that, right? So if you're in that situation, ask yourself, how is it helping you? I've been guilty of it myself. It's like I felt like trapped and it was hard. I'd be like, in work positions, it's really complicated, it's really, really hard. And actually what I just needed to do was ask a question. Now, it might have been to a challenging person, which made it hard emotionally, or like brought up a lot of fears, but it was actually very simple. I don't understand this. I need to go speak to someone. So what I'm trying to get at here is actually when we try and make life a lot more complicated, it can actually mentally and emotionally be really impactful, what I've personally found. So that's why I really want to share this perspective with you today, and I'm going to give you some guidance around it. So it's about like processing what you need to when hard stuff comes in, absolutely process it. But just thinking about what you need to do. What is even the next step, right? I heard some advice, like if you're trapped and you're like, where do I go next? It's just about taking the next step sometimes. Now, I'm going to give you some guidance on this in a moment. But just ask yourself, are you caught in that story of like, oh, it's really complicated and you don't understand my story and all these kind of things? Is that helping you move to where you want to go? Or is it just keeping you stuck? So I've totally been guilty there. So here's some points for you today. The first one is just commit to no more than 3 habits, 1 if possible, that are new that you want to introduce. Keep it very simple. Like maybe it's you finding your mood's not very good, like, and you're really like low recently. Maybe just not being looking after your mind, listening to rubbish, not eating so well, and you want to commit to just 20 minutes of meditation a day or 20 minutes of breath work a day. So what I recommend is doing that for a certain period of time, at least a week, ideally 2. Well, and ideally if it's a great habit, onwards from there. And just log your results as you're going. I found that's really powerful because sometimes we've done something for a while and we get results, but if you write it down and remember it, it's going to be like, this is working, right? So it's like, okay, you do 20 minutes of breath work for a week or 2, and then you're like, do you know what? I'm actually feeling slightly more calm. I'm feeling a bit more relaxed. And when you write that down because of the activity you've been doing, you're like, okay. So that's just a simple way. And the final point to that first point is the final bit to that first point is to celebrate as you're doing it. So it's just like you do the habit and you just celebrate, right? The second one, what would someone great or who's really good in what you're trying to move forward to do in that area? So if you like want to feel more joy, who's someone really joyful that you look up to, like, and what would they be doing? What do they make sure they do every day? It might be something like they make sure they go and smile to people, they're kind to people. Maybe they listen to something that inspires them. Maybe they do something they do every day. If you're struggling for that first thing and the first point, just thinking about who has got something or a result further along than you and how can you learn from them. And then my final point would be, if you're really stuck and you got this like complicated thought process, try and calm down and step out of it and say, if this was someone else, how would I be guiding them through this process? Because when you can take that perspective, it can really, really help in looking at it outside of your own emotions and outside of the jar. Now, I've got a final point for you as well. And I just want to mention again, though, if you want more podcast topics, you want to request more podcast topics, then you can connect with me on social media. Links are below, or you can just leave a comment in this podcast. The final point I really want to share with you is think in your life where things are really simple, like you've got it nailed, and then think about how you can learn it from that. So maybe you do really well in your job, but you really struggle with getting healthy habits or your health, or maybe your relationships or something like that, right? Where perhaps it's a bit more of a challenge. Look at your job or the area that's really good and think, what can I learn from that? How do I keep things really, really simple in that area? And then start role modeling yourself into another area. I find that's really helpful for me. So I'll look at things like, I'm doing really well podcasting, I'm very consistent. What can I take from that in an area where I'm perhaps not moving forward as much? So that's what I got for you today. I appreciate you for being here, and remember to lead with your heart and not with fear.